Rashi is going to get into certain Kabbalistic topics now. Zrat Hashem. Rashi is going to speak about the names of God, which is an important thing because how often do we talk about the names of God? Basically all the time. We're talking about the names of God literally non-stop. How many times do you say God's name in a day? At least 100, because you have to make 100 brachas. Ma'ashem lekecha shel limach, al tikrama ela mea brachas b'chol yoyim. But not only that, when you say Tehillim, when you daven, Shmona Esrei, everything is names of Hashem. Names of Hashem are everywhere. You learn Torah, you're saying names of Hashem. The names of Hashem are very fundamental part of Jewish life, and to know that there's many different names of Hashem. Many different names of Hashem. And there's a book that I would suggest you guys get. The Vilna Gaon even suggested it. It's called Shiur Torah. Anybody heard of that name? Some people think that that's the name of like a Reform temple, but because it sounds like a nice Shiur Torah. But Shiur Torah is a book that is written by the Rishonim, and the Vilna Gaon said to learn it, is that it's a Kabbalistic book about going through the different 10 gates of the spheres. And essentially what he explains is that each gate that you go through is getting you closer to the king. And there's different names that are used that are required to... There's different names that are used that are required. Is this going to be an authentic entry into the king? So imagine you were in a palace of the king. So can you just go right into the king? No, you need to go past guards.
Many levels.
Pardon?
Many levels.
Many levels. First you have to get through the outer guards. And then you see the guys with the tall, furry hats. And then you got to keep going, and you have to make your way in. You don't just get to the king. So the Shiur Torah explains that in davening it's the same thing. In davening there's gates that we take in order to get to the king. And each step of the way there are different forces, bodyguards if you will, that try to stop you from getting into the king. And therefore you have to be aware of this, keenly aware, is how am I going to make it lifnai v'lifnim to meet with the king? Because people may stop me and say, what are your credentials? What's the password? What do you think a guy like you belongs in a place like this? And you got to answer those questions. Now, what do we know for sure? Who could get right to the king and bypass all the bodyguards? Tzaddikim, but also the son of the king. The son of the king, some guard says, what's your credentials? He's like, get out of my way. He just walks through his legs. So the Baal Shem HaKadosh had a way of getting to the king, of just be a son of the king. And then all the Kabbalistic things like, you got it all. So in so much that you know that you're a son of the king, you could get all the way in to the king. In so much that you don't know that you're a son of the king, so you have these names. But even the son of the king, when he's able to talk to the guards, there's also an element of the guards helping him. Sometimes you do have rebellions, and people make problems for the son of the king. Especially if the son of the king doesn't act like the son of the king. And his speech is a little bit off, and his dress is a little bit off. And they don't recognize him in the palace anymore as being the son of the king. That's right. If you don't recognize him as the son of the king, then it may not be easy for him to get in. So B'siyata D'Shmaya, this part of the Rashi in Bereishis says, Bereishis bara Elokim. What's the first name of God that we have in the Torah is Elokim? Din. So Rashi says, why did the Torah decide to write the first time that it says God, that we're speaking about God, judgment, din? Elokim. Elokim means to stop. It means din. And Rashi says, V'loi nemar bara Hashem. Why doesn't it say, Bereishis bara yud ke vav ke? Why does it immediately go into Elokim? It's an important question. A person has to think about. The introduction to all of Torah's Elokim is judgment. V'loi nemar bara Hashem, which is rachamim, which is compassion. So Rashi answers, Shebetchila ola b'machshava livroisai b'midas hadin. When God made the world, God wanted to create the world through the character trait of judgment. He wanted to set up the world in a way of strict judgment. Why would that be a good way to create a world? Because you get what you earn. You get what you earn. That's a higher level of self-development, is that you're treated the way that you're acting. So Hashem wanted to set the world up that way, which would require a very high level of human performance. So ola b'machshava livroisa b'midas hadin. Hashem wanted to run the world that if a person did a sin, he would immediately be punished. Turns the light switch on Shabbos, lightning bolt. What was the problem? Now, why would that be good? Because then you would realize that things are serious. You have to step up your game. Hashem, though, at that same moment realized, Hashem saw, she'ein ha'olam miskayim, that if God would run the world through such strict judgment, the world could not continue. Hikdim. That's an interesting language. Hikdim. Hashem prepared in advance. Hikdim. Midas rachamim. Hashem prepared the trait of compassion. The shitfa l'midas hadin. And Hashem joined it with midas hadin. Which is interesting, that every single din will be tempered with rachamim, with compassion. That's what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like he made din, and then, don't worry, like right at the end, like when we think you're going to be finished, well, like Seder. It sounds like the way that judgment will conduct itself in the world is that judgment will always be tempered a little bit, with midas harachamim, that there's going to be a shittuf, that they're going to run together, that din will always have, it almost sounds like when there's din, there's judgment, Hashem wants to judge, there's going to be a voice within din, it's a tiferes sheba gevura, there'll be a voice within din that will say, is this going to be the best thing for him if we punish him so severely? Is this going to help move humanity in the right direction? So we're tempering the judgment. Midas hadin would say immediate punishment. The Midas HaChesed would say just give him good. Midas HaRachamim say, I always like to say that Rachamim is like the therapist. You have a husband and a wife, and the husband says like this. The husband says, let's go to Tzfat for Shabbos. And the wife is like, no.
No, Hashem, don't. It's not me. It's not that me. My wife's gonna agree.
Divorce.
And she says, where are we going to sleep, and what are we going to do, and having kids, and where are we eating? You're like, don't worry, Tzfat. You know what I'm saying? It's just why are you bugging out about the car seats? It's all going to work out. So what happens? So the therapist, so to speak, says, you say you don't want to go to Tzfat, and he says he wants to go. Could you hear why he wants to go to Tzfat? says, yeah, because there's like the spiritual spirit recharge. There's the Arizal's mikvah. There's the kedusha of the avir. There's mamish. The Rebbe's there. There's this tremendous awe. And then the therapist asks the husband, do you hear why she doesn't want to go? Yeah, because, she's worried about practical things and, where we're going to stay and where we're going to sleep. And the therapist says, do you appreciate that? Could you hear that? I guess so. I can, the kids have to sleep somewhere, And we do have to figure out, food situation. You're right, there has to be food. It's a mitzvah to have sudas on Shabbos. And so maybe can you now come together and say, you know what, I am concerned about those things, those dinim. But let's discuss that we could go, but maybe before we go, we'll set up certain situations where it'll be more comfortable, things will be set up, have car seat, everything that obviously you'll need to do. And that's the rachamim in the din. Is that the rachamim is coming and is saying, don't just stop the trip. No, we're not going. Let's get the trip going. But let's try to appreciate how we could go on this trip in a way that's actually going to make sense and is going to work for everybody. So Hashem was hikdim midas rachamim v'shitva l'midas adin. Hainu dichsiv b'yoyim asois yud kei vav kei elokim eretz v'shamayim. And here we see that Hashem put together yud kei vav kei, which came first, to Elokim. I want to add another layer to this story. Anybody here of Bilam? Who is Bilam?
Talking donkey.
Yeah, the guy that did more than just talk to the donkey. Hashem Yerachem on such evil in the world. He was a person who was maybe one of the most evil human beings that ever walked the face of the planet. Bilam. It says Bilam was Lavan, by the way. Bilam was Lavan.
Like a Gilgal?
Yes. Or the same person, Mamish. Bilam is Lavan. Bilam was one of the advisors of Paroi. And
Is he born or he was the same?
Likely the same person. One of the advisors of Paroi. One of the most evil human beings to ever walk the face of the earth. And his big thing was Arias, was making the world stumble in all sorts of sexual impurity. Just absolutely disgusting human being. Now, Balak wanted to destroy the Jewish people. And he said, how are we going to do that? How are we going to destroy the Jewish people? Well, he said, Ein koichem ele bepeh. The power of the Jewish people is in our power of speech. Speech means Torah and tefillah. The way that we're going to bring Mashiach is not through weapons, my friends. The way that we're going to bring Mashiach is through the weapon of speech and a holy speech. Through learning and through prayer. And therefore, if their power, and Bilam knew this, Ein koichem ele bepeh, that's the power of Moshe Rabbeinu, that their power is in speech, so we need someone whose power is also in speech. And who is that? Bilam. Bilam had the power of curse. And the Gemara says, how did Bilam know how to curse? Where did he get this power from? It says that Bilam knew the regula, the little moment, the moment that Hashem is koyes. That there's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second that God expresses anger in the world. And if he could precisely time a curse at the second of that anger, then that would be it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the outsmarting God. It doesn't sound.
Well, let's see it through the idea.
That's an awful thing.
Tosfos, by the way, says how much of a curse could you give? If it's a rega of a rega. So Tosfos gives two answers. He says, Kalim is curse. Even that, do you get the whole word in a rega of a rega of a rega?
I got the C.
Good. Kalem. Destroy it. Destroy it. Ah. Then Tosfos has another answer. Tosfos' second answer is no. If you start the curse at that moment, you got in the window, you could continue cursing. We actually apply this halacha when it comes to Shalosh Shudas and other halachas. As long as you started before nightfall, you could continue.
Shmon Esrei.
Shmon Esrei, as long as you started davening mincha before the time, you could continue. Because you made it in the window, now you're in. Now you're in. You could keep going. The window opened, you made it in. That's the second opinion. So the Sfarim HaKadoshim, the holy books say, what was this moment? What is this moment of God showing anger? So they say, you know what that moment was? Bereishis bara Elokim. The moment that God thought to make the world with judgment. This is deep. The Hava Amina of God building the world from din and judgment, right before he was mishatif with Midas Arachim. If you could find that Havamina, it was the Havamina in God, and then be cursed then, essentially what the curse would be tapping into just strict judgment. But what do we see? Was he able to curse in the end? No, because Hikdim, Hashem, you think that there was even a regula that he was angry? No, Hikdim. Hashem, even in the din, made a Tiferes Shebe Gevura. So even within what you think is the din, and therefore all of Bilam's curses turned into blessings. Ma toivu oyalecha Yaakov, mishkan oisecha Yisrael. We put that in our shuls. We write that on the Aron Kodeches. Words from Bilam. How goodly are your tents, Jacob, dwelling places of Yisrael. Lesson of the story: don't mess with Hashem. Align with God. Align with God and good things will happen. All the good things that we want, align with God. And you'll see goodness, you'll see blessing in the world. So this is this Rashi. We'll just say one more Rashi, because it goes on. That was, by the way, all the first pasuk. Ve'aretz ha'isa soyu vavoyum, and the land was completely toyu and boyu. What's a toyu and what's a boyu? So toyu, let's see Rashi. What's toyu vavoyum? Toyu hu lashon tema v'shimamon. Toyu means like a tamiyah. When you learn Gemara, you're like bitmiyah. Look at Rashi, bitmiyah. Tamiyah means like what? You're bugging out. Technical term. Confusion. But it's just like
Nothingness.
that's boyu.
Oh.
Toyu is when you see something and it's bugging you out. You're not processing what is happening because it's so off. It's so beyond what you can calibrate and think about in your brain, and it's like very bothersome. It's bothering. It's bothersome. Something is out of order. We like Seder. Toyu is out of Seder. So Toyu vavoyu, says Rashi, Loshen tema v'shimamon, which means what? She'adam toye, he's like, what? Umishtomem, it's like when you see something that is a beyond thing, and what was the beyond thing? The boyu shaba. The beyond thing that he was seeing was the bo, which means absolute emptiness. Toyu means I'm so not processing how empty everything is right now. The world is just, it's like, you go into a dark room, so, darkness is also a creation. an empty room. Yeah, but there's a room. This is like there's nothing. It's almost probably like anxiety ridden to even think of such an idea. And that's why it's toyu. It's very bothersome. Toyu. And remember, we started already from the previous Rashi that we saw last time, is that all of this narrative is to get to the or. It's just a backdrop of getting to light, which is a very deep thing. That the whole build-up of the Torah was getting us to the light. Boyu ashtordishun belaz. If your old French has been perfected, you would know what ashtordishun means. Boyu, what's boyu? Lashon rekas, absolute emptiness. V'tsodu. Sodu means like total emptiness. Al pnei tehoim, Rashi, and this toyu vavoyu, and there was choshech. Rashi doesn't go into the choshech. On the face of the tehoim. Where was the tehoim? Al pnei hamayim she'ala aretz. On the face of the waters that were on the land. That's where the tehoim was. The waters that were on the land. Veruach Elohim mirachefes al pnei hamayim. And on top of that, remember, we don't even know what space is at this phase in creation.
Introduces water before water was created.
That's why we spoke about that, is that the waters were from pre-creation. That's why Noah's flood was really taking the world a step before creation. It like pulled creation back half a step. So the world was like losing, because it was going to pre, which water existed, and we said also Aish. One of Rashi's proofs of what that water, it can't be talking about order because water came before creation. It says that Bereishis bar lakim eisa shamayim ve'esa arz. What's shamayim made up from? Shumayim. So mayim, if shamayim was created, well, there must have been the elements of mayim. Rashi didn't mention though, Aish was also there. Aish is also pre-shamayim va'arz. And if Rashi concludes that it must be, it's all talking about not a sequence, but it's talking about just a narrative that Bereishis means in the beginning of something, of God's creating. This is what things looked like, not order, and it was all to get to the light. As do we see this chaos here, and then we say, Chazal say, Ruach Elokim merachefes al pnei hamayim melech Mashiach. Etoyu, boyu, choshech, tehoim. So Chazal say these are the 4 exiles that the Jews went through. That already at the beginning of time it was hinted the exiles that we would go through. What's Toyu? Bovel, the Babylonian exile. What's Boyu? The Persian exile. What's Choshech, darkness? Greece. That's where the Hanukkah story comes in, at the backdrop, because the Greek exile was all about darkness. What do you mean? I thought Greek is like beauty and this. No. It's all external beauty, which is dark. Sheker achein vehevel ayofi. You guys should all marry the most wonderful, beautiful, holy women, the Siyata D'Shmaya. I advise you, who's better to marry? A very nice, beautiful girl with very nice midas, or a supermodel who's a witch?
Oh, well, it's an obvious question.
She's a supermodel.
There must be something more to the question.
Huh?
No, I'm saying.
So what's the answer, obviously?
Right.
First one. But why are people so attracted? Because all they see is the external, but somebody who maybe has an external that looks beautiful, but then you look at them and it's very dark. You look in their eyes, it's very dark. It's very dark. It's sad. So that was Greece. The outside look at these guys, but they said there's no soul. He said, you can learn the Torah, but don't tell me that it comes from God. That's choshech. Tahoin. What's the Tahoin? That's Rome. That's the exile we're still in. It says the end of the Roman exile is the Galus of Yishmael. Tahoim is the tunnels, is the depths. Those were the tunnel dwellers.
We've had 4 exiles.
4 exiles, and there's really a hidden 5th, Galus Yishmael, and there's really a hidden at the end, which is really the Erev Rav, which is the combination of Edom and Yishmael working together. That's Erev Rav. Hashem should save us. And Hashem will save us because He sets up the entire story. Because how does the 4 exiles end? Ruach Elokim mirachefes al pnei hamayim. That Melech HaMashiach is coming. Speaking about the godly energy, we'll speak about this Rashi next week. Rabbi said, let's go right into our Tehillim of Kuf Chaf Aleph, Siyata D'Shmaya. You could share the Tehillim with everybody. That, like my dear wife said, everyone we have to memorize Psalms of David, 121, that right after our Bereishis project, say Pittel of Tehillim, that we're memorizing. Thank you, Tzaddik. And then from that, we'll go right into the Gemara learning. So in the Art Scroll version here, it has Tehillim on page.
This is so good to tell him about your phone if anyone has the smart.
That's the shower.
Not that we have one.
975. Okay. Oh, we said we were going to do it with the tune. Okay, Rabbi Isai, here we go. We're going to do Yosef Karduner's tune. Okay, Jir Lamalo, 121 Shif Amalos. Ezayin Elohim, me'ayin yavo Ezri, Ezri me'im Adonai, Ose shomayim v'aretz, al yidei lamod raglecha, al yanum shomrecha. Hinena yalom v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael, Adonai shelecha, Adonai tzilecha, al yad yeminecha. Yoimam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yoreach b'layla. Adonai yishmocha mikol, yishmor es nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzischa v'yecha, me'adon li'ad olam. Shkoyach Rabbi Yisrael.